Shalom, all praise to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua, double honor to the apostles of GMS. This is Amnava Allah coming at you in another video. In this video, I basically want to focus on the topic of knowing when to speak. Because I was just looking through the scriptures, and I saw the scripture Proverbs 21 and 23, and came in my mind. Say, you know what? Another scripture came up in my mind through the Spirit upon that. And the Spirit said, to do a lesson. So I just gathered a couple of scriptures that's associated with this topic through the Spirit, and here we go. So the first scripture I want to get is Proverbs chapter 21, verse 23. Whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keepeth his soul from troubles. So, he that keepeth his mouth and his tongue. What does that mean? A person that keepeth his mouth or keepeth his tongue is the person that has power to withhold the tongue that is in their mouth from speaking these words, from speaking certain things. And you keep your soul from troubles. You see, because at times you got to know when not to speak. Because there are times when you could speak out of turn and you could say something that's incorrect. There's times when you could say a little too much and reveal too much information, And that can lead you to troubles. Because now you're like, dang, I should have never told that person this. And the next thing you know, that person might turn those words back on you. Or that person might go on and tell somebody else what you told them. Or you may say something that you shouldn't say. And now you're looking at yourself like, man, I should have never said that. And a lot of misfortune can come from those types of situations. Just by talking out of turn. By revealing too much information. By telling someone something that you shouldn't say. That shouldn't know something. Or just by saying something that shouldn't be said in general. That can bring about a lot of misfortune. So you don't want to do that. So whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keepeth his soul from troubles. It's like a person on a job. You're on a job, you become cool with some of your co-workers. But you don't want to tell too much about your personal, but you don't want to tell your personal business at all. But if you do, what might happen, that person may go along and tell another co-worker that. And next thing you know, you're finally talking behind your back about your business. And you upset, but at the same time, you gotta be like, I should never said nothing to begin with. You know what I mean? So you gotta always keep that in mind. Whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keepeth his soul from troubles. Now you may not necessarily be thinking about the scripture every time you speak, but when you study the scriptures enough, these words are going to be embedded in you, and it's going to become like second nature, because you're going to start to practice it, and it's going to become a part of your character. It's going to become part of your spirit, part of who it is that you are, and it's going to come natural to you. You're not even going to think of it to do it. You're just going to do it, at least more times than not. There's still maybe going to be times when you're going to, say things you shouldn't say. There may be times, you know what I'm saying, but the more and more you practice these things, you decrease the likelihood of that happening. Because you're conducting yourself in the manner in which you should by holding your tongue. Here's an example. This is the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 1. Scripture says, keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of the Most High. So when you go to the house of the Most High, it's a certain way that you're supposed to, conduct yourself. And there doesn't have to be an actual building. You in the house of the Most High. Scripture tell you, when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. So the house doesn't necessarily have to be an actual physical building. So you got to conduct yourself properly and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools. Right? Be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools. Now, what's the sacrifice of a fool? The sacrifice of a fool is a person that's not willing to hear, and the person that's not willing to hear is always speaking. So be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools. Because if you in the house of the Lord, house of the Most High, and you aren't ready to hear and you continually speaking, guess what? You're giving a sacrifice of fools, because since you aren't willing to hear and you're just talking, you aren't saying things that's wise. It's like a person that's in class and the teacher is, teaching a lesson. And you got that student that the teacher goes on to ask a question about the lesson that they're teaching. Because that person wasn't willing to hear, that person may answer the teacher's question foolishly. Because that person wasn't ready to hear. That person wasn't listening to what was being said. So you got to be more ready to hear than to get a sacrifice of fools. Because the person that's not willing to hear is the person that's going to speak something foolish. Because they aren't taking heed to the instruction that's being given. They aren't taking heed to the words that's being spoken. For they consider not that they do evil. Right? Those people like that, they won't even consider doing something that's wrong. They won't even take it into account. They'll just say any old thing. You know? It may say something, you just look at them. Or everybody start looking at him. Or her. Or you look at them with your mind's eye. Not literally your physical eyes, but with your mind's eye. In other words, in your mind, you like if I say I see what you mean, that doesn't literally mean I see it. That means I see it, but with my mind, I understand it. So when I say the mind's eye, I'm talking about what's going on in your head. So you may look at them with your mind's eye, like thinking like, what's wrong with this person? Like, you know what I mean? Or when somebody says something foolish and you just like look to your left, look to your right, or you look around, because that person's saying something foolish. You know? They aren't even considering they're doing something that's not wise. Ecclesiastes 10 and 12. The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool shall swallow up himself. So the words of a wise man's mouth are gracious because he's speaking wisdom. But the lips of a fool shall swallow up himself, because a person will say something foolish and it'll expose their folly. Or they could say something that's foolish and their words can entrap them. You know, it's like catching the person in a lie. Catching the person contradicting themselves. That's their lips swallowing up themselves. It's like a trap. It's like a hole in the ground that's covered with thin branches with leaves on top. It just look like, leaves on the ground. But then you step on it and you fall into that hole. You get swallowed up into the earth, fall into that hole. That's like the lips of a fool swallowing up himself. Their words are entrapping them, like a trap that someone could fall into, like a hole in the ground. Their words are entrapping them. They're saying something that's foolish, exposing their folly, contradicting themselves. So lips of a fool could swallow up themselves. First you said this, but then you said that. Hold on, wait a minute. You contradicted yourself. Oh, wait a minute, you said this, you lied. See? Proverbs 17:28. Even the fool, when he holdeth his peace, is accounted wise. So even the fool, when he holds his mouth, keeps his peace, he's counted as wise. Why? Because since he's not speaking, you don't know you're a fool. Because he hasn't shown his folly. He's quiet. You're thinking he's wise. You're thinking he's listening. Zeno of Citium, who's the creator of Stoicism, he has a quote that goes, you have two ears. They say it's attributed to him. You have two ears, one mouth. You should listen more than you should hear. And he's they say he's the originator or the creator of Stoicism. The Stoics were found in the book of Acts. I believe the 17th chapter. And he that shutteth his lips is esteemed the man of understanding. Somebody that's mouth is shut, you esteem their man of understanding. You would think if the class is quiet, everybody listening. Some kids some people in the class may be foolish, whether they're old or young, college, high school, whatever. But because they aren't speaking, you're assuming that they're listening. So even the person that's a fool is better to keep their peace, so that they won't expose their folly and they esteem to be wise in that manner. Okay? Going back to that scripture, keeping your foot when you're in the house of the Lord. Because when the scriptures speak about this truth, it's known as like a walk. This is likened into a walk, a path. Okay? So when you're keeping your foot when you enter in the house of the Lord, you're guarding your steps. You're going, and I said you're guarding your steps, meaning you're going in there to do what it is that you're intending to do what it is that is to be intended. You're guarding your steps. You're not going in there for foolishness. You're not going there to engage in any folly. You're going there to hear. So when you're keeping your foot, you're guarding your steps. Your steps is what guide you. Your steps is what lead you down that path. It's figurative. It's not literally talking about your actual keeping your foot. This truth is likened unto a walk. See if I can get a scripture on that. This is 1 John 2 and 5. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily, meaning truly, is the love of the Most High perfected. Hereby we know that we are in him. He that saith he abideth in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked. Let's go to that word walk.
Strong's G 4043. Peripateo.
Peripateo. See, it says to make one's walk, to make one's way, progress, to do use of opportunities. Hebrew for to live, to regulate one's life, to conduct one's life, to pass one's life. See, give you examples. See, it says moral conduct right there. So that's what it's referencing. So when you're keeping your foot when you go into the house of the Most High, your foot is what guides you on this walk of righteousness. So when you're keeping your foot, you guarding your steps. You go in there to do what you intended to do. You go in there not to engage in folly, but to engage in righteousness and understanding. So by keeping your foot, you guarding your steps. You guarding your steps. So when you walk into that congregation of the Lord, you go in there you intending to do what you're supposed to do. Okay? Matter of fact, since I'm on the topic, I might as well go back to the verse. Ecclesiastes 5:1, keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of the Most High, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. So keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of the Most High. You guarding your steps. You walking in there prudently. You walking in there with wisdom. And be more ready to hear. So when you walk in there with wisdom, when you walk in there with understanding, when you walk in there being prudent, be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools. So be more ready to listen than to say something foolish and show your folly. For they consider not that they do evil. Because people who don't do these things, they don't consider that they're doing that which is wrong. You know? Since I was on the topic, I might as well went back to the scripture. And I go back to the last verse we read, which was Proverbs 17:28. Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise, and he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding. So that's when the fool does those things. So how much more when a righteous man with actual wisdom holdeth his peace? He will be more ready to hear than to speak. He's not going to get a sacrifice of fools. And even if a foolish person was in the house of the Lord, if they kept their foot and were more willing to hear than to speak, then guess what? Their folly won't be shown either. They'll be looked at as my understanding. So you always got to take heed. Last verse, Proverbs chapter 20, verse 5. There is one that keepeth silence and is found wise, and another by much babbling becometh hateful. There you go. One that keepeth his peace and is found, keepeth silence and is found wise. Or he was silent. He's a wise person. Because that wasn't just the person that was silent, but was really a fool. That person that was silent who was actually wise. They were wise enough to listen as opposed to speaking. And another by much babbling becometh hateful. Somebody that's always talking, they become hateful. They become annoying. A person that don't know when to be quiet, always talking out of turn, saying things that aren't even in due season. You know, some man holdeth his tongue because he has no answer. Some people don't say anything because they don't know they don't have an answer, which is good. Sometimes they ask a question, you don't know the answer. Sometimes the question's asked, you don't know the answer. It's best to keep silent, as because you don't have an answer. And some keep it silence knowing it's time. So some people hold their tongue because he has not an answer. They don't know what to say. And some keep it silence knowing it's time. But some keeps quiet knowing it's time. So they may have an answer, but they know that it's not time. So sometimes if an elder that's a apostle asks a question, let's say, you don't always want to be that guy that always, look, me. You want to give somebody else a chance. And then, your time will eventually come. A wise man will hold his tongue till he see opportunity, and a babbler and a fool will regard no time. So when a wise man will see the opportunity to speak, and he will hold his tongue until then. But a babbler and a fool will regard not time. Will regard no time. They're going to always be talking. He that useth many words shall be abhorred, and he that taketh himself authority. He that useth many words shall be abhorred. Somebody that talk too much, they're going to want to separate themselves from you. Like, man, I don't like being around that dude. You talk too much. I don't like being around the streets. You talk too much. And he that taketh to himself authority, therein shall be hated. And the person that tries to take authority, that tries to, take a certain position of authority, they're going to be hated. Because you're an individual that's of pride. You're prideful. That's what it is. You're being prideful. You know? You're being prideful. You're trying to take authority, so you're going to be hated. It's like when, you at work and you got that coworker that always want to play the boss when the boss not around. That person is not the second in command, third in command. They're a regular employee just like you, but they want to go and tell you what to do. That person going to be hated. Now, that don't mean you're actually going to hate that person like, you want the person to die, you want harm to come their way. But they're going to be hated in the aspect of like, yo, man, I don't like this person. I don't like this individual. Or you're trying to tell somebody what to do. Like, I'm a coworker just like you. And that's happened to me on a job before. And that can apply to any kind of situation. And one more verse. Okay, it's the same chapter, right to the point. Sirach 20:20. A wise sentence will be rejected when it comes out of the mouth of a fool, of a fool's mouth, for he will not speak it in due season. So if a fool says something that's wise, but it's not even the time where it calls for that, they're not going to regard what you're saying. If somebody's talking about this one topic and you use something else, you may have a wise saying, a wise sentence, a understanding statement, a knowledgeable statement, but it's like that's not even the topic that we're talking about. You're talking about a whole nother topic. You're right, but that don't even apply to what we're saying here. So it's going to be rejected because you're not even speaking it in due season. It's like we having a topic about a discussion about one topic, and you bring up a totally different topic. You're right, but people can be like, "Well, yeah, that's right, but that's a whole nother topic." You're just trying to deal with this right here, and that could be in any kind of situation. So you gotta take heed to those things. So with that, I'm gonna close and say, "Oh, praise to Yahweh B'Shem Yahshua, that belongs to the Apostle GMS. I hope you better learn something. Shalom."